Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. The manhwa starts off with a starry sky as a man asks for one more cup. We see two men drinking. One of the men, named Hui Ryongja, says that he's waited for decades, but to think he'd only have one cup, calling the other man a cold-hearted person. He pours him another one. He says, come to think of it, when they first met, they were both young. He stares at the man, wondering where the years went. Ryongja pours a drink, saying that it's been over 40 years since he first met the man. As we see a younger version of him entering, asking Ryongja to use the Great Regression technique and send him to the past. Ryongja was surprised. We learn that the technique is one of the great achievements of the Gui family. It has been researched and passed down for centuries now, and that it was close to impossible to use. He could have completed it, but he had no choice but to give up, as the 5 materials needed to complete the technique were actually impossible to gather. Ryongja smiles, saying that he'll use the technique if the man brings him the materials needed. He says the first is called the Thunder Bell, a sacred artifact of the Heavenly Wind cults. The second is the Divine Incense Brazier, a sacred artifact of the Divine Dragon family. The third is the core essence of the 10,000-year carp. The fourth is the secret demonic soul of the demonic cults. Ryongja says that he was able to get the money he needed, but other than that, he could not get anything else. Yet the man in front of him was able to get them all over several decades. To obtain the last material, the secret demonic soul, he disappeared for a long time and thought that he died in some random hole. He looks down at his cup, reminiscing, saying that it's hard to believe, asking how on earth he got all the materials. The one-armed man takes a drink, saying that he thought that this so-called great technique ought to be cursed due to the materials, and he also considered the possibility of killing Ryongja. Ryongja stares at him, says that he was really young when he first met him, but now he has become an old man with white hair, and that the air around him has changed as well, and he wonders if it was inevitable for him to change so much as he had to obtain all the materials needed. Ryongja says he finally gets the chance to ask him, and wonders why he's going back to the past. The man slams his cup on the table, and in a cold tone, saying it's for revenge. Ryongja is surprised, asking if it was impossible for him to take revenge even with his current skills. The man says yes, and Ryongja asks who he hates so much. Ryongja glares at him, and tells him that his name is Hua Mogi. Ryongja is shocked, as he recognizes the name. He kindly explains that all the leaders of the 3 strongest groups that supported Muram had died in his hands. The Alliance leader was killed, the Unorthodox Alliance leader as well, and the Heavenly Demon. He is the strongest person across all history, Hua Mogi. As we see him standing atop a mountain of corpses, Ryongja asks if he really thinks that even if he went to the past, he'd be able to defeat him. The man says he must, as he has to kill him no matter what. We learn that the Heavenly Demon who died by his hands was his father. Ryongja is surprised, and the man says he's not seeking revenge because he killed his father, and it's not because he killed his sly cunt of a brother either. It's not a big deal for people who have given their lives to demons to be killed. Ryongja asks why then. The man says on that day, he killed the servants, cooks, and even children who did not know martial arts. He even killed all of the cats and dogs. Ryongja says that's not something Mogi would do, and he can't believe it. The man says he does not care if he believes him or not. In this age, he won't be able to kill him, so he has to go back to the past. And he'll ask him one question before he does kill him. And that'll be why someone so strong had to kill children. Ryongja stares at him, saying that if the technique really works and he gets sent to the past, maybe he can do a favor for him. The man asks what it is. And Ryongja stares at him with a very serious expression, and says if he goes to the past, please come and find him. The man asks why, and then lightning strikes to show the severity of this request. As Ryongja says, he needs him to stop him from getting married. The thunder rumbles in the back, and the man makes a serious face as he understands how important this is, and then he starts laughing at Ryongja. Ryongja tells him that he's not kidding, and pleads with him to stop him. Ryongja tells the man to tell him to be alone for the rest of his life. The man smiles, saying that he promises him that. Ryongja tells him to follow him as they'll go to where he'll use the technique. We see the man stand up, and he wobbles as he is having trouble standing. Ryongja asks if he's okay, and the man says that he can still hang in there. He may have lost an arm and an eye, but it was a cheap price to pay in order to obtain the secret demonic soul. We see all the items gathered together, and Ryongja picks up a box, which obtains the demonic soul. It releases a blue aura around the room. Ryongja quickly starts chanting with his hands together, as all of the artifacts begin to resonate with one another. Then there is a loud vibrating sound, it stops, as the area around them distorts and a portal opens. Ryongja is surprised and screams that he actually did it. He turns to the man and asks if he's seeing this. As he sees the man is in horrible condition, and that he can't move due to his injuries. Ryongja looks at him and then looks back at the portal and realizes that this is his chance. He apologizes to the man, saying that he's sorry, and he'll look for him and warn him about the disaster, and that his family's greatest wish is to return to the past, as is his. As he gets closer, he realizes he can no longer move his body, and that his pressure points have been hit on his back. The man calls out to Ryongja, asking him how he could do this. Ryongja starts to feel fear, and the man continues, saying of all people, how could he do this, and grabs him by the throat. Ryongja begins to cough, and starts crying, saying that he lost his rationality, and he is very sorry. He says that he knows how hard it was for him to obtain the materials, and he should not have done this. The man's eyes are filled with mercy as he releases Ryongja. He says that he's a selfish person, too, and he cares for nobody but himself, and that was how he was able to gather them all. He grits his teeth, saying if Ryongja was anybody else, he would have killed them immediately, but he understands his wishes after all. He extends his hand once more, but this time to pat him on the shoulder, and thanks him for waiting his whole life. Ryongja starts to cry, and the man smiles warmly at him. Ryongja realizes how much his friend cares for him, and apologizes again. Then everything begins to freeze. The man is surprised, and turns around as the entire area has become timeless. He wonders what's going on, and then he hears a loud commanding voice saying that he has all the tests, and he turns to see a deity floating down. The man asks who he is, and the deity says that he is the one who can send him to the past. The deity says that there is no way a human can understand the logic of the heavens, asking if he thought a mere creature and some materials could make traveling back in time possible. He says that the true materials of this technique aren't these objects, but rather the efforts he has offered to gather them all, and he has passed the test, as he has lived his life with one goal in mind, sacrificing everything else, and that forgiving Ryongja was the last test for him. It was actually the toughest test out of everything, but he passed it so easily. The man says if he's passed the test, then to please fulfill his wish and send him back. The deity asks what he plans to do. The man says that he will kill everybody who deserves to die, and save those who don't. The deity asks if that's really all he wishes for. The man continues, saying he wants to live a meaningful life, and the reason he was so desperate is because he regretted the way he lived, and had too much anger for Mogi. The deity asks him specifically what he regrets, and the man says everything. Ever since he was born, none of his actions were out of his own will, and they were all driven by something else. He is pushed around by so many others, and before he realized it, there weren't many years left. The deity thinks about it, and then smiles, saying that he's curious about what kind of life he will live now. He begins to disappear into a golden aura, saying that he looks forward to watching his journey. Time flows back again, and Ryongja is still apologizing. The man turns back to him, and Ryongja says that he knows it's shameless of him to say this, but please don't forget their promise, and then he must stop him from getting married. The man holds back his laughter, and walks towards the portal, telling him to stay well. Ryongja yells out, saying, don't forget about a brother, please. The man goes into the portal, and everything fades to white, and then he opens his eyes in his younger body to see a crowd full of people as he stands atop a platform. He looks up at a statue, saying that he's really done it, and that he has finally come back to the past. He notices something as he begins to feel a presence in the air, and he looks up towards where it's coming from, to see a man staring down at him. The man's eyes are full of complicated emotions, and we learn that it is his father. His father is surprised as we see the man smiling at him with warm eyes, and then somebody yells asking how long he's going to keep them waiting for, and slams his sword into the ground, telling him that it's time to fight. The man says that he sees, and that he remembers this day, as it is the day of the new demon skirmish. The man explains that his father, the heavenly demon, declared that he won't limit the selection of the next cult leader to only his own bloodline. This caused an uproar within the cult because that meant that anyone could become the heavenly demon if they were strong enough. His father showed that he was serious about his announcement and launched a fighting competition amongst the next and original leaders of the cults, the new demon skirmish. The victor of the skirmish would be given a chance to challenge one of the heavenly demon's two sons. Whoever wins in that fight will be given one wish for the heavenly demon to grant. We see his opponent telling him to give up while he still can. The man stares at him with a blank expression, saying that he remembers clearly that he felt offended that he chose him. His decision meant that he thought he was an easier target than his older brother. He bribed the cook in the kitchen asking him to mix the energy dispersing poison into his rice so he can't use his energy. He ended up losing the match due to this dirty trick and tried to tell his father, but he didn't say anything. In fact, he looked at him with eyes full of disappointment. After this, the man did everything he could to try to make up for his defeat, but he kept failing over and over, which made him lose his position in the succession war. Everything started from the defeat he suffered this day. His opponent asks if he is distracted even though he is right in front of him. The man stares at him and asks what his name was again. The man gets embarrassed and introduces himself as Gu Pyongho. The man says he remembers and that he is one of the 7 disciples of the 8 supreme called Gu Chenpa, the Blood Heaven Sword Demon. This is his 5th disciple. Pyongho says that seeing as how he is messing with him, he must be confident in his abilities. The man glares up at his father, saying that he didn't know this in the past, but he now understands based on his father's eyes that he knew he was poisoned, and he was observing how he was going to overcome this problematic situation. Due to still retaining what he learned in his past life, defeating Pyongho without using any inner energy should be easy, but he can't show all of his skills, that he needs to hide them. He raises his fist in the air, saying this in front of everybody that he will fight Pyongho without using any energy. Everybody is surprised, even Pyongho is, and they start saying that he has guts. They start chanting his name. For some reason, the translators put the actual translation rather than his name. So I had to dig through the novel to figure out that his name is GM Muguk. Pyongho starts to get worried that he is losing the crowd and says that he too won't be using his inner energy. The crowd goes silent and they start flaming him for killing the mood, saying that it is going to be boring if he doesn't use his energy either. Pyongho gets annoyed and grabs onto his blade, saying that his sword will cut anything it strikes. Muguk says that he feels foreign in his younger body and he wonders if he will be able to move it as he wants. Pyongho points his sword at him, telling him to unsheath his blade. But Muguk says he won't need it. The crowd laughs at Pyongho, saying that he is being looked down upon. He starts to get embarrassed and says that he won't kill him since he is the leader's son, but he will definitely cut an arm off, and leaps towards him. Muguk sidesteps the attack, saying that his body is able to react instantly. Pyongho comes back with another full swing and we see Muguk back flipping over it in the air. Muguk lands and smiles, saying that he can feel how strong his heart is at this age. Pyongho gets annoyed and leaps at him again with an overhead attack, asking why he is smiling. Muguk looks up and realizes that this is an opening and charges directly into Pyongho, elbowing him in the chest. As his face falls forward, he quickly follows it with an uppercut, knocking Pyongho's head backwards along with some of his teeth out. He then grabs onto his collar so he doesn't fall over and pulls him in for more punches to the chest. Then follows it with a kidney shot, which causes Pyongho's feet to leave the ground. He starts to spit up blood and falls onto his knees. Muguk grabs onto his hand and asks if this was the one he used to poison him. Pyongho is surprised, but Muguk instantly knees his elbow, causing his bone to shatter out the side of it along with exploding the joints. Pyongho lets out a blood-curdling scream and some of the contestants watch in fear as he screams in pain. Muguk looks down at his opponent, saying that now that he has returned to the past, he will no longer let people influence how he lives. His father raises his hand and everyone waits in anticipation. He says he will grant him a wish and ask for what he desires. Usually people will request a weapon or a martial arts manual, and that's probably what everyone thinks he will choose as well. This time he will follow his instincts and he tells his father that he wishes to go on a hunt with him. His father is surprised and even Pyongho is confused why he is asking for something so basic. His father confirms that he just wants to go on a hunt, and Muguk smiles, saying that he has heard that his father enjoyed hunting when he was young and he would like to learn how to hunt from him. His father's eyes look like he was happy with the reply and then stands up, saying that they will depart tomorrow at dawn. And then we see him take his leave as all of the Demon Supremes boat towards their master. Muguk watches his father leave and then hears Pyongho mocking him, saying that he can't believe he made such a lousy wish. Muguk asks for his name again and Pyongho yells, saying that he is going to kill him. Muguk says he doesn't plan to live reckless like the rest of them. Back in his room, he is looking in the mirror, saying that he really is young again, but he can't stop seeing that it is a much different appearance than the old him that he was so accustomed to. He wonders what Mogi could be doing right now. Saying that if he can find him and kill him before he becomes strong, then he can resolve this matter easily. The problem is that he is hard to find. He appeared in Zhonghu as if he fell out of the skies. After he destroyed the Murim Alliance, the Unorthodox Alliance, and the demonic cult, he hid himself from the world. So there is no information on him. But trying to find him by telling the whole world his name would be a dangerous act of provocation. In the end, his top priority is to become stronger than Mogi. As he is hyping himself up, we hear a woman call out to him, saying that he fought very well today. He turns surprised and calls out to her as we learn her name is Leon, and we see that she is his bodyguard. She do got a body for garden. Muguk says that he didn't know at this time that her huge size was due to the martial arts she learned, and that it was all for his sake. It's called the body petrification technique. The user gains the ability to make their body as tough as a rock, and that's only known to certain people. The biggest flaw is that it makes the user really wide. She threw herself in front of an attack that Mogi sent his way, living her final moments as a sacrifice to him. We see him looking at her with warm eyes, and she asks him why he's staring like that. He smiles, saying that he didn't realize her voice was so nice. He walks forward saying that she was ready to throw her life away, but he only thought of her as a simple bodyguard, and he took her for granted, just how people take having oxygen in the air for granted. That's the exact same way he did to her. He stands before her, saying that she's bigger than he remembers, and he smiles warmly at her. And she wonders what's going on. He explains how everyone said that On would grow up to be one of the greatest beauties in the world, but she suddenly went on a dirty bulk and appeared saying that she would protect him. He didn't know back then that she had cried so much after becoming fat, and he never noticed how her eyes became swollen due to that. He wonders how she felt as she gave up on her appearance when she could have become the greatest beauty in the world, and wonders how he treated her in the past, and says maybe he started to treat her worse after she got fat. His eyes look full of regret, and he says that he promises her this, that he'll get rid of the side effects that are making her fat. She asks him if he's okay. He recollects his thoughts telling her that he's alright, rather he's good, and she tells him that he's acting strange. He says as expected of On, she notices instantly that he has changed. He grabs his sword saying that he'll go show her something even stranger, and she asks where he's going. He says to deal with a rat. It jumps to a restaurant as we see all of the staff greeting him, and he asks why they did it. An older man asks what he's talking about, and Muguk glares off to his side looking at a specific man asking him why he poisoned his meal. Everyone is surprised, and the man instantly says he didn't do it, and Muguk asks him if he gambled away the 300 yang he received. Muguk explains that the boy has a great debt due to his gambling addiction, and he spent away all of his parents' money, even the money he borrowed from his friends. He bows telling Muguk that he's committed a grave mistake, and that he's blinded by money. Muguk asks him if Pyungho personally gave him the money, and the man says yes. We instantly see his thoughts scattered across the room after Muguk swung his blade. The other staff are worried, and Muguk says shame on him. A cook of all people dares to poison the food of others. The older man quickly apologizes, saying that he will take responsibility for this. Muguk asks why he's at fault when the other man is the one who poisoned his meal. The man says that everything that happens in the kitchen is his responsibility. Muguk then asks him, as we learn his name is Lim, if that means everything that happens in the cult is his father's fault. Lim says that's not the case. Then Muguk says exactly, so why is he trying to take responsibility for this? He tells Lim to stop talking nonsense and cook him shredded chicken noodles for dinner, as it's been a while since he's had it. Lim is confused, and On says that he just ate it a few days ago. He looks back at her and can tell that she is curious, and he smiles saying that was a few decades to him. The next day at dawn outside of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, we see his father asking him why he brought so much shit to their hunting trip. Muguk says that there are just things that he needed for the next few days. His father says that he only planned for a single day's hunt. Muguk says who knows, he might enjoy the hunt and want to stay for longer. His father glares at him saying that it's an ambitious dream he has, and it jumps to the mountains. We see them walking through the forest, and he tells Muguk that he's better than he thought. He says that he noticed that he was hiding his skills and says that it would be better to tell him. So he does, and his father says that he noticed. Muguk says that he's not a cat that hisses but a beast that hides its claws. His father stops walking, asking him why a beast would hide its claws. Muguk says that he hasn't thought about it from that perspective. His father explains that's why he's a cat and asks him how much of the soaring sword art he has mastered. The soaring sword art is passed down only to the heavenly demon's bloodline, and it's thought to be an extremely advanced martial art similar to the martial arts learned by the demon supremes. He tells his father that he's completely mastered it. Then we see him narrowly dodging an attack from his father. He says if he didn't turn his face his whole cheek would have been gone, and his father is surprised that he actually mastered it. Muguk asks him if he really tried to attack him without knowing if he did, asking him what he would do if he did not dodge. His father says that he would have simply paid the price of having lied to him, and that dodging it shows he's mastered it. Muguk says even so he has a face that resembles his, and it would not look nice with a scar on it. His father looks at him with satisfaction, and Muguk wonders if he went overboard. His father turns away saying that being able to master it at such a young age is really worthy of praise. Muguk is surprised as he has never received a compliment from his father before. He follows behind him, but he's enjoying this and thanks his father. We see his father looking at tracks on the floor, and Muguk asks him who he learned it from. His father says his older brother taught him. Muguk is surprised that he had an uncle, and his father tells him that he killed him when he was around Muguk's age. Muguk thinks about what to say and then tells him that he did great, which surprises his father. Muguk continues saying that otherwise he would not have been born. His father glances at him and then continues walking. Muguk says that even his father would have been hurt having to fight with his own family, and he's seen it many times in his past life. The stronger a person seems on the outside, the deeper their wounds are. His father says back then he could not find any other solutions. Muguk thinks about what this would mean as Muguk says that he had no other way to win the successor war. Muguk grips his fist saying that he hopes his father doesn't expect him to find a solution, when he wasn't able to either. He already knows that there's no need for him to even consider that because his brother is vicious and cruel. His father's eyes look a bit sad as he's glancing back at Muguk, and he says that he's speaking ill of his brother when he's not around. It jumps to some more mountains as we see them running up them. Muguk looks up at his father, and explains that he never got married in his past life. That's why he doesn't really know how it feels to have children, so he's curious what kind of existence he is to his father. He makes it to the top, and stands beside him, asking his father if there's something here. His father tells him that it's their dinner. Muguk quickly grabs his bow, and says they need to kill it then. His father asks how he's going to kill something that he can't even see, telling him to close his eyes, and feel his surroundings. Muguk says okay, and then starts to close his eyes. He explains that when martial masters try to figure out their opponents, they sense the vibrations in the surrounding air. People usually refer to that as the energy flow of a being. He can only feel one energy flow in the surroundings, which is his father's. His father tells him to send some of his energy out in a single line, without breaking that energy to make it thin, and think of his body as a ball of yarn, and to slowly stretch his energy out as if he is pulling a thread. We see it actually forming from his body, and his father asks if he's reached it. Muguk says yes, and he can feel it. His father asks what he thinks it is. Muguk starts to think about it, and he starts to wrap his energy around it, saying that he thinks it's a tree. His father tells him to search the area around it, and to do it slowly. We see the energy moving throughout the air as Muguk is concentrating on keeping it in a line. He reaches something, and can tell that it is some kind of animal with thick fur. His eyes open widely, and he says that it's a boar or even a bear, saying that the fur is stiff, and the body is long, so it could be either. His father tells him that he got it right, and it was a boar. He glances down at Muguk, saying that at first he was unable to guess it correctly at this distance as well. He looks back at his father warmly, saying that he was gifted with a body that learns martial arts quickly after all, and this much is not a big deal for him. His father looks at him with eyes full of suspicion. That night, we see a fire, and his father asks how he learned how to cook animals like this. Muguk says he learned it from a book. His father says that learning it from a book and doing it are two different things, and he seems too skilled at this. He tells his father that he's glad it seems that way. He says obviously he'd be good at something he's done countless times. He tells his father that he prepared what he's sitting on so that he could win his favor, and that it was worth carrying all of the heavy baggage. His father asked him if he only wanted to hunt with him to impress him. Muguk says no, as he knew it would not work on him, and he can become the successor even without his help. His father says he's quite confident, then asks him why he wanted to hunt with him. Muguk says that he had two reasons. First is because he wanted to learn whatever he could from him to become stronger, and that he's already succeeding at that. His father then asks what comes after getting stronger, and Muguk says that he might misunderstand, so he would like to explain himself. He's not trying to become stronger because he wants to become the heavenly demon, as he's still healthy and strong. He doesn't want to waste his youth trying to take his place, and that he is satisfied if he can learn the heavenly demon's martial arts by becoming his successor. He looks up at the stars, saying that he needs to learn the 9 calamities demonic art quickly, and master it, and go beyond that level, as even his father who had mastered it lost to Mogi, and that mastering it will be just the first step. His father then asks what the second reason is, and he's surprised his father's interest in it, and smiles, saying that he wanted to spend some time with him alone, as it's their first time doing this. His father lets out a slight smile, saying that's a useless emotion that'll get him killed. Muguk asks why it's useless, saying that he gets to spend time with the strongest person in the world, and makes examples that whatever his father does means that it's the world's best. His father glances at him, and then glances away back towards the fire, and gives him a slight nod of approval. Muguk says that whenever he tried to remember his father, he had no memories of him, as his memories of being scared don't count as real memories to him. In this life, he doesn't want to have those types, but he then says that this is for his own sake, not his father's. The next morning, Muguk says it's time to head back, and his father says they're not going anywhere. Since he came out to hunt with the heavenly demon, they need to at least kill a tiger before leaving. Muguk is surprised that he wants to stay, and his father says that he needs to stop standing around and follow him. Muguk says yes, and quickly starts going with him, following behind. They head deep into the forest until they reach a bamboo area. His father tells him to close his eyes and focus. The target is on the right side, 100 yards away, and that it's further than the last prey. He wants him to feel the wind this time, infusing his energy into it. Muguk says in all of his time learning martial arts, he never thought of infusing his energy into the wind. There was no one to teach him this after all, and none of the arts he learned did this either. His father tells him to release his energy like last time, and that he needs to be slow and careful. If he wants to use this in a real situation, he needs to be able to send out his energy as fast as he can. Muguk concentrates, and we see his energy getting more condensed. He can start to feel the wind, and wonders how to combine the two, as he is struggling. As he keeps trying to match the wind's path, something finally clicks as we see it forming along with the wind. He says that this is it. To infuse it is not to ride on it, but rather he needs to entangle the two together. We see it flying through the forest, following whichever way the wind takes it until it hits his target. He can see a tiger glaring at him. He is surprised, and screams to his father that there really is a tiger. His father is surprised, and Muguk asks why he is making such an expression. His father says that he can't get lazy in his training, and the more lines of energy he can maintain, the higher his chances of survival are. That night, Muguk pulls out liquor, saying this is his strongest trump card. We see his father drinking it, and he is surprised, saying that this shit is gas. Muguk says that it is too strong for him. Of course, it is just a lie. His father says that no demonic human would complain about liquor being too strong. Muguk says that, so what if he can't drink? Having a vicious heart is more important than drinking liquor. His father asks if he would be able to kill him in order to live. He says no, asking how a child could kill his parent. Honestly, this is a lie too. If he had enough reasons, he definitely would. It's his first time having a proper conversation with him, so how could he treasure his father's life more than his own? He asks his father how he could kill him, and his father takes a sip, saying if he is hesitant about it, then he shouldn't say things like having a vicious heart. He looks down, saying that he guesses he has to learn how to drink strong liquor, then, he chugs it. We see that his father is making a caring expression. Later on, back at Muguk's house, we see him focusing on learning how to spread his aura out. He inhales and says, after focusing the last few days on training, he's now able to freely infuse his energy into the wind. He's also able to maintain 3 to 4 lines of it. He wasn't expecting his father to teach him how to discharge his energy. This is as good as getting an extra life because he'll be able to first find out the enemy that's trying to attack him. If he continues training, then he can release more than 10 lines at the same time. He might be able to neutralize any stealth techniques. He resolves himself to get even stronger than before, and then says that even his father, who was much more skilled, lost to Mogi because the heavenly demon pavilion was infiltrated. It is a place that is thoroughly guarded by 3 barrier formations, 6 trap formations, and a group of carefully selected elites, along with the 8 demon supremes, each in a different direction. In the north are the demonic swordsmen of the Northern Heavens Swords family, led by the 1/Sword Supreme. In the south, there's the demonic bladesmen of the Southern Heavens Blade family, led by the Blood Heavens Bladesman, Chinpa, that was mentioned earlier. In the east, there are the Iron Fist of the Eastern Fist faction, led by the Fist Demon. The west are the Western Illusion formation, led by the Soul Stealing Demon. The northeast are the Faceless Swordmen, led by the Evil Smiling Demon. The southeast are the Drunken Swordsmen, along with the Demonic Drunkard. The southwest are the Poison Fangs, who research all sorts of poison, along with the Poison King. And finally, the northwest are crazy monks that follow the demonic Buddha. Lot of demons, huh? Back then, he thought the enemy had broken in from the outside. However, that was not the case, and he later realized that the outer defense was never broken. He's certain that someone among the 8 Supremes let Mogi into where his father was at. There could also be more than one traitor, as they were never found out. But it doesn't matter who it was, because he treats all of the 8 Demon Supremes as traitors. Even after his father died, not one of them sought revenge. Instead, they closed down the demonic cult. That's still an event in the far future, so he knows all about it, and he knows the kind of lives they've lived and what their last moments in life were like. He begins to walk forward, thinking about the task he has ahead of him, saying this time he'll make use of the 8 demon supremes through and through. As he gets to the door, he hears someone making fun of On and her dirty bulk, asking if Muguk is in the training ground. We see the man is bald, asking how many days he's been in, and why he can't wait anymore to get him out. She gets offended by the fat comment, and On asks what she's doing. She turns, surprised that he's come out, and he says that he told her to do her own thing while he was training, and asks if she was here the entire time. The man says that he's finally out, asking why he went in out of nowhere and sat in there for days. Muguk says that he is a disciple of Chinpa, just like Pyungho was, and that his name is Yang Po. You can say the reason he dares to act this way in front of him is because of his father. After he announced that anyone in the cult could become a successor, being the heavenly demon's son no longer feels special. In fact, it fueled the ambitious desires of many within the cult to defeat him. Muguk asks Yang Po what he wants, and he says that Pyungho can no longer practice martial arts due to him. Muguk asks if he wants him to go look after him or something. Yang Po asks if he thinks he's joking, and Muguk says he doesn't think they're close enough where they can have a serious conversation. Yang Po starts to get mad, saying that he needs to take responsibility for crippling him and apologize. Muguk can see through this act of camaraderie, saying that the best disciple of the Blood Heaven's Blademan hasn't been selected. That's why his disciples are trying to impress him by doing whatever it takes, and Yang Po wants an official apology from him so that he can claim credit for not making Chinpa look bad. Muguk smirks, saying he doesn't think his master would choose him as the best disciple just because he did this. Yang Po panics, saying that's not why he's here and that it's for Pyungho. Muguk tells him enough, and then glares at him, saying that he wants him to be the one to apologize. Yang Po asks what he has to be sorry about, and Muguk says that he spoke rudely to his subordinate, telling him to apologize to her. Yang Po is confused, and On tries to tell him that it's fine, but he says even if she's okay with it, he isn't. She doesn't know what to say, and Muguk continues, saying that he dared to speak rudely to his subordinate, and he wants him to kneel down and apologize. Yang Po sighs, asking if he wants him to kneel to that pork chop over there. Muguk starts to get pissed, saying there he goes running his mouth again. Yang Po says he would rather die than kneel to her. Muguk asks if that's really what he wants, saying that he will grant him his wish then, and he begins to unsheath his sword. Yang Po is surprised, and so is On. Yang Po says that he's finally gone crazy. Muguk points at him, saying that he needs to kneel down and apologize or fight him. The choice is his. Just so he knows, his master won't be pleased if he chooses to retreat. Yang Po asks why he's going so far, and Muguk says he doesn't care if they came looking for him, and he can understand if he's here to seek revenge, but he won't allow him to insult his subordinate. On still can't believe the sudden change in Muguk's behavior, and Yang Po starts to laugh, asking if he's really trying to kill him over a pig. Muguk says that's just how much she means to him. Yang Po draws his blade off of his back, and his boys try telling him that this is not a good idea. On tries to talk Muguk out of it, but he ignores her, and they start to have a WWE stare down. Yang Po says that since he's the son of the heavenly demon, he'll just take his arm instead of his life. He starts to wind up his attack, and everybody watches in anticipation. He then leaps in with his attack, slashing towards Muguk, but it's instantly avoided, and Muguk stabs the man through the head with his blade. Everybody is speechless, and Muguk says that his mouth was the cause of his death, and that he shouldn't have insulted his subordinate. As we see his blood drip down his blade, Muguk says that he should have apologized when he was given the chance. He draws his blade from his mouth, causing his blood to go flying across the courtyard. Yang Po's limp body starts to fall over, and Muguk glares down at him as if he just stepped on an ant, ice cold. His boys start running over, screaming out his name, asking Muguk if he thinks he can handle the consequences of his actions. Muguk says if they keep running their mouths, they'll have the same treatment, and they can tell everybody about what happened using his exact words, and if they say it any differently, he will come find them. They start to walk away with Homie's body, and On asks him why he did that. He asks what she's talking about, and she asks why he did something like that for someone like her. He says that she's still worried about him, even though she's been hurt emotionally. He says that this isn't because of her, and he killed somebody who simply deserved it. She says that Chinpa won't let this slide. Muguk thinks about it, saying it's understandable for her to be this scared. He says the 8 demon supremes all have great influence, and are very strong, and that their followers are people that even his father can't ignore. He has crippled one of Chinpa's disciples and killed another. He tells On that he won't do anything because he has nothing to gain from getting involved, saying he would only be criticized for teaching his disciples wrongly. On says that his pride might get hurt, though, and he tells her that he does not have such pride. He sees that she's worried, and he puts his hand on her shoulder, saying in any case, she doesn't need to worry so much about him. We see her catch feelings, and he says on the contrary, he will gain something out of killing Yang Po. He crushed Pyong-ho in a fight, and now killed Yang Po. He'll be able to attract everybody's attention now. If points were given out during the Succession War, it would mean that he scored himself another one. An thanks him for what he did today, and she smiles, saying that she was really happy that he took her side. She says that she means it from the bottom of her heart. He smiles at her, saying that she better be thankful, and she can't forget this for the rest of her life. He walks off proudly, saying that he wants her to keep smiling, and he wants her to live her life happy. That night, we see him chilling on a rock, thinking about the day. He says that come to think of it, he was drowned in a sense of defeat after he ran away from the demon. The sense of depression was so great that he wouldn't have been able to continue living if he hadn't put all of his time and effort towards the goal of regression. He wonders how things would have gone with his life if he never found out about it. He then senses something as he looks over to see his own reflection in a blade. He realizes whose blade this is, and what this must mean, as we see Chinpa standing behind him, holding the blade to his throat, and that Chinpa looks hella pissed. Muguk says he didn't think he'd get here so quickly, and wonders if he can dodge his sword, saying no matter how much knowledge he has gained from his past life, his inner energy is severely lacking, so he probably won't be able to. He starts to think about what to do, and then feels the aura from the sword dissipate as Chinpa sits down beside him. Muguk looks over at him, and he sees him smiling. Chinpa asks him why he did it. Muguk says he did it because he acted like a fool. Chinpa asks him to explain, and Muguk gets to the point, asking if he came to pick a fight with him or not. Chinpa doesn't say anything, then kicks his sword up and puts it back to his throat, asking if he should cut his head off and show it to his father, asking if he thinks he will care. Muguk says he doesn't think he could follow through with it, since he would have to deal with his father. Chinpa's expression does not change, but he withdraws the blade, drawing a line in the ground with it, making a long line and then a short one at the top. Muguk is confused and asks him what it is. He says that this is how much his father cares about him, and the small portion at the top belongs to him, and that he takes the majority. Muguk looks over at him, then looks back down at the ground and makes his own mark, saying that he's his son still, and he'll probably matter at least this much, and that he would take 7, and Chinpa would take 3. Chinpa smiles and laughs, saying that they'll only know if they test it out, wondering if he would be killed, or left to live if he brought his head. Muguk says that he's underestimating the love of a father. Chinpa tightens the grip on his blade, saying this is why he said he should test it out, and begins to release his aura yet again. A shiver runs down Muguk's spine, and he turns with a smile, saying there's no need to test it out, as he only has 2 sons, and there's only one Chinpa. Chinpa smiles, saying that he's not as foolish as his disciple. Muguk stands up, saying that if his disciple was anything like him, he would still be alive. Chinpa calls out to him, saying that he's lived his whole life with misfortune, and he hopes they don't meet often. Muguk says he'll be sure to remember that, and then he sees Chinpa is no longer standing there, and that he was too fast for his eyes to even follow, as he's already leaping over the trees. Muguk looks at the empty rock and begins to feel a pain on his side. He lifts his shirt, and we see 2 bruises. We see it was from earlier when he lightly tapped his side. Muguk realizes that he needs to train more to recover his strength, and that Chinpa might look like he acts carelessly, but that's not the case, as he's calm and calculative, and that everything is planned meticulously. The fact that he repeated twice that he would carry his head to his father means that he really was thinking of doing it, and that him coming here must mean that he left a deep impression. His request to hunt with his father was unique, and that he came here as a test to see if he was fit enough to be the successor, and wonders if Chinpa will be his first opponent of the 8 Demon Supremes. If you've watched till the end, comment, Beluga, to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.